You're watching the Nokia T20 disassembly. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you like, subscribe, and click on the notification bell so you'll be notified the next time I upload a video. And if you need any tools, there are links in the description. Now since this is the 4G plus Wi-Fi version, it has a SIM tray, so we're going to have to start off by removing that SIM tray. Next, we need to heat up the front where the screen is to loosen up the adhesive underneath. You're probably going to need some sort of suction cup tool to help you gain some leverage between the screen and the plastic border of the screen. So you can get your plastic pry tool in between to carefully run it along the edges of the frame, but make sure not to stick the pry tool too far in to damage the screen underneath the glass. Now once the screen is free from the frame, we're going to lift it up from the right side of the screen towards the left and gently pull it up, but be careful, the screen cable is still attached to the board. There's a single Phillips screw holding this bracket down, which is covering the connector for the battery cable. Once that screw is removed, we can lift up this bracket and remove that, and then we can disconnect the battery cable. There's another Phillips screw over here holding this bracket down, which is covering the screen cable that needs to be removed. Once that screw is removed, we can remove the bracket. And then we can disconnect the screen cable from the board. Here's a better look at the other side of the screen. This flex cable over here, which connects the screen to the main board, can also be removed from this end of the screen. So if this cable is ever torn or ripped, you should be able to replace that. All you would have to do is peel up this protective tape over here, lift up this lock on the connector and pull the cable out. In order to remove the battery, there are 3 adhesive pull tabs provided on the bottom of the battery to help you pry the battery off. Well, those pull tabs don't seem to be effective since they easily tear. So we are going to need to use some isopropyl alcohol and get it around the edges of the battery and let it sit there for about a minute so it eats away at the adhesive underneath, making it easier to pry off. Here's a better look at that battery. So there's a plastic assembly which sits inside of this aluminum housing. There's a single Phillips screw holding down this bracket as well, which covers the connector for the subboard. Once that screw is removed, we can lift up and remove that cover. And then we can disconnect the flex cable from the board. There are 6 Phillips screws which need to be removed, so we can lift up and remove the subboard and the headphone jack from the frame. Once those screws are removed, we can lift up and remove the subboard. The charger port is located on the subboard and there's a rubber gasket around it. Taking a look at the other side, this flex cable can be disconnected from the subboard, as well as this one which leads to the headphone jack. There's a protective tape over it which first needs to be removed. Next, there's a lock on the connector which needs to be lifted up, and then the cable can be pulled out and removed. Here's a better look at your headphone jack. There's a lock on the front-facing camera connector that needs to be lifted up, and then the flex cable can be pulled out. Now this protective tape or film on the corner needs to be peeled off. At this point, there are 20 Phillips screws which need to be removed. Once the screws are removed, we can lift up these metal brackets or covers. And then we're going to carefully lift up this flex cable for the power button. Now the speaker assembly can be lifted up and removed. Once the speaker assembly is out of its place, we're going to have to peel off this flex cable for the power button clicker from the top of the speaker assembly plastic. Now we can lift up and remove the other speaker assembly. Keep in mind the speaker assembly cables are soldered onto the board. If you wanted to replace those, you would actually have to desolder these cables from the main board. And then finally we can lift up and remove the main board. The main 8 megapixel camera is located on the corner of the main board. The 2 microphones are located here, and there's a proximity sensor located at the top center. The SIM card and memory card reader is located here, and there's some copper tape over the shield and some thermal paste. And here's a look with the copper tape peeled back. Here's a look at the back of the motherboard. The LED flash is located on the corner by the camera. The flex cable contact for the power button clicker is over here, and these 2 gold contacts touch the contacts on the main board, giving it signal. The flex cable for the volume key is located here, and that's also held down with some adhesive. And the front facing camera is also held down with some adhesive, so if you want to remove that, just apply some heat and gently pry it off. As far as repairability goes on this tablet, I give it a 6.5 out of 10. Screen replacement shouldn't be too difficult. All you would have to do is heat up the front where the screen is, pry the screen off, remove the metal bracket covering the screen cable, and then disconnect the screen cable. At that point, you'll be able to get your new screen, reconnect the cable, and reassemble the screen. When it comes to replacing the battery though, it's not too difficult to pry the battery off with some isopropyl alcohol, but those provided pull tabs seem to tear and don't really help prying the battery off. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the tablet back together. Once everything's back in place, apply new adhesive and reapply your screen. And go ahead and power it on, and you're done. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.